Hello, everybody. How you doing? It's time for part 5, aren't we? Ready for the final end of this? It's Bill, it's that college football guy here with the final video, part 5, in my Big Ten prediction video series. All right, we start off. What we have here is USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. We'll follow that up with a recap of the standings from the bottom up, my prediction for the conference championship game, and who's winning it. So shall we get into it? All right, USC, Southern Cal, 8-5 last year. You beat Louisville in the Holiday Bowl. Vegas has your win total at 7.5. Lincoln Riley, so far 19-8 at USC, respectable start. What is the biggest question regarding USC? Is the Miller Moss we saw in the bowl game the Miller Moss we're going to get? And part of me is leery of that because I'm a Tennessee fan. Joe Milton put up a great bowl game, but stunk in the regular season. At least compared to that bowl game. He was not as good as he was in that bowl game. So, that being said, is Miller Moss in the same vein, or is he a different one? Lincoln Riley being the head coach, they're going to put up some points. But how else is that going to go here? And if somehow, some way, he's not ready to go, can even sophomore UNB quarterback Jaden Mayava, the transfer, can he step up and do it? He might get some playing time anyway. So we'll see how this goes. USC basically did one thing. Reloaded. Regardless of what position on the line it is. But the wide receiver room is probably the one that had the most of a rebuild, and it needs to step up. Defensively, DeAnton Lynn, the former UCLA defensive coordinator, comes over to USC. How else that can improve the defense? Defensive line is young, but they're going to be damn good. Linebacker room is solid. Defensive backs, a lot of transfers in that one. The DB room, how is that going to work? How else is that going to improve? How's that going to go? We're going to find out, aren't we, soon enough? Well, so let's start off the season. USC, neutral site game in Vegas against LSU. Start, I guess it's the kickoff classic, I guess. We don't know what team you have. I know kind of on there you got who's going to have the better quarterback because both teams are starting a new quarterback. But my question came to this. Whose defense do you trust more? And LSU's defense stunk last year. So did USC. So this is really tough. And I debated on this one, but I just have that feeling LSU is going to be able to stick the fork in them and win a tough game. And LSU is going to beat you. Then you're at home against Utah State. Home, not neutral sites. And you're going to beat Utah State. Then you get the bye. Then you're out of the bye on the road at Michigan. You watch part 2, you know this game. You're losing on the road in Ann Arbor. This was somewhat of an upset for some people that had the Wolverines beating you. But yeah, you're losing to Michigan. Then the fun starts for you. The Trojans. You're at home against Wisconsin. Foreshadowing. You're beating Wisconsin. I just don't see how this is going to work. Wisconsin is travel. On the road at Minnesota, you're doing cross-country travel as well, but you have more talent. You're going to win that game. You're home against Penn State. Cross-country travel hurts Penn State. That was done in part 3. You're beating Penn State. On the road at Maryland, I covered this in part 1. You're beating Maryland. Home against Rutgers. I just covered this in the last video in part 4. You're winning this game. On the road at Washington. You lost by 10. You lost by 10 at home last year. Now you're on the road at Washington. For some reason, I'm going to give you the credit. I'm having you beat Washington. I don't know why I did that one, but I just look at it this way, is that the amount of influx that's in Washington is a lot more than what's going on with USC. So, and as much as Lincoln Riley is maligned, trust his offensive mind more. So, I'm giving you the victory over Washington. Then you have another bye. You're at home against Nebraska. This is part 2 of the series, and you beat Nebraska. On the road at UCLA, your crosstown rival. I just did this in the last one. You're beating UCLA. Then you finish off the season at home against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be beat up. You lost by 25 on the road last year. This game is going to be tough. It's going to be a knockout, dragout. But I have faith in you. I'm having you beat Notre Dame. So you're finishing 10-2, 8-1 in conference. Impressive. Next, we have the Washington Huskies. 14-1 last year, lost in the national championship game to Michigan. Vegas has your win total at 7.5. What was that percentage in USC's? USC's was also 7.5. Jed Fish from Arizona. How well is that going to transfer over? Brennan Carroll's the offensive coordinator who came up from Arizona. A lot of Arizona influence on this team, so a lot of around there. But it wasn't Arizona influence on the team when it comes for your starting quarterback. You picked up Will Rogers. That was huge. All of the rooms are going to have a lot of turnover. All of them are. Maybe the worst one's going to be the offensive line. You lost all 5 of your starters. That's going to be a problem here. And your defense. You've got a Belichick defensive coordinator. Steven Belichick. First-time defensive coordinator. How well is he going to do? I honestly don't know. This is going to be interesting. The defensive line room is totally revamped. They need to get that done. That's the same thing with both of these. It's the linebacker rooms, the defensive back rooms, a lot of turnover, a lot of new players coming in. How well can they get this? How well can they acclimate? How quickly can they do this? That's going to be the key to this. But we'll find out about that. So, shall we get into Washington, shall we? All right, you start off the season at home against Weber State. Yeah, that's an easy win. Then you're home against Eastern Michigan. Another easy win. Then you're at home. It's the Apple Cup against Washington State. You beat them by 3. By 3. At home last year. Now we're playing them again at home. I kind of debate on this one, but Washington State lost a lot more talent than you did. And I got to pick you to beat Washington State. So you're 3-0. Then you're at home against Northwestern. This was part 3 of the Big Ten videos. You beat Northwestern. On the road at Rutgers. Just covered it in part 4. You beat Rutgers. Home against Michigan. I covered this in part 2. You're losing to Michigan. On the road at Iowa. Michigan and Iowa back-to-back. And you're on the road at Iowa. The Rutgers game was cross-country. Iowa's going to be cross-country. With that defense, and that was covered in part 1, you're losing to Iowa. Then you get the bye. Your first one of the season after doing 7 straight. That's part of the reason you lose to Michigan and Iowa. This is the number of games you got to play in a row. Come out of the bye on the road at Indiana. I covered this in part 1. You're beating Indiana. It's just on there. Then you're at home against USC. Just covered this in part 4. Actually, not part 4. Right before this. I'm not talking about part 4. Just cover this right now. You're losing to USC. You're on the road at Penn State. Cross-country travel. Covered this in part 3. You're losing to Penn State. Home against UCLA. Covered this in part 4. You're beating UCLA. Then you get your bye. And then you're on the road at Oregon. The team you played twice last year and beat last year. And if you watch part 3, you know Oregon beats Washington. So Washington, preseason prediction of 7.5 wins. I have them going 7-5, 4-5 in conference. And last but not least, the Badgers of Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. 7-6 last season. You lost to LSU in the Relia Quest Bowl. Luke runs an air raid offense. Luke Fickell runs an air raid offense. They didn't have the personnel for it. This is year 2. How well is that going to go? How well is that going to translate? Tyler Van Dyke, who came in from Miami, how well is he going to translate into this? The running back room is going to have to improve to make any kind of an impact. They were subpar last year. Wide receiver room was solid. The offensive line room, it's kind of a mixed bag. You got 3 returning starters. Your pass protection has to improve because Sack City back there for a little bit. Defensive line, you lost a lot, and you have a group coming back that is very inexperienced. They may have years and years on the roster, but games played starting, that's a different story. Linebacking room is a heavy transfer portal influence. How well can they gel and improve? The best room on the team, secondary. They're deep, they're talented, and they can make plays. And they're going to have to make a lot of them. So how well is Wisconsin going to do this season? Well, they start off the season at home against Western Michigan. Get a dub. Then they're at home against South Dakota. Also a dub. Then they're at home against Alabama. Big fat L. I mean, I I look at this way is that Alabama's going to have their issues, but a lot of Washington's talent travel to Alabama, plus their players. And I don't know if that air raid can do enough. And Jalen Milroe's back, so I'm picking you to lose to Alabama. Then you get the bye. Out of the bye, you're on the road at USC, cross-country travel. Just covered this. You're losing to USC. Then you're at home against Purdue. Covered this in part 4. You beat Purdue. On the road at Rutgers. Covered this one too. You're beating Rutgers. That was part 4. At Northwestern, part 3 video. Covered this already. You're beating Northwestern. Then you're at home against Penn State. This is also part 3. Just too much of a talent difference. You're losing to Penn State. Then you're on the road at Iowa. Cover this in part 1. 6th game in a row. On the road, Iowa's defense. You're losing to Iowa. Then you come out of the bye at home against Oregon. Too much talent. Cover this in part 3. You're losing at home to Oregon, but this game will be close. Could Wisconsin pull off the upset? Yeah, they potentially could. On the road at Nebraska. This was covered in part 2. You lose that game, and then home against Minnesota to finish off the year. I had this game as a coin flip. I covered it in part 2. You are beating Minnesota. So Wisconsin finishes 6-6, 4-5 in conference. So now, instead of recapping just those 3 schools, let's do the entire conference recap. Bottom up. We go my conference record here. Holding up the bottom, well, we have a 4-way tie for next to last place. Last place, Indiana, 4-8, 1-8 in conference. Last place, 3 schools, 2-7 in conference. Rutgers and Minnesota were, 3 schools were, Rutgers and Minnesota were, Minnesota and Northwestern, 5-7, 2-7 in conference. Purdue, 3-9, 2-7 in conference. We had 2 schools, 3-6, Illinois and Rutgers. Let's do the conference record. We had 5 schools at 4-5, Maryland, Michigan State, Washington, UCLA, and Wisconsin. 2 schools at 5-4, Iowa and Nebraska. 2 schools at 7-2, Penn State and Michigan. 2 schools at 8-1, Oregon and USC. And 1 school, unbeaten, 9-0, Ohio State. Who plays? USC only lost 1 conference game. But that conference game was to Michigan. Oregon's loss was to number 1 Ohio State. That loss means more than a loss to Michigan. So I have Ohio State playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Not exactly a stunner for anybody here, but I say that. That's the only reason I gave them the tiebreak is the fact that you actually played the number 1 team in the conference. You lost. But you lost to the number 1 team. You lost to Michigan, who's tied for 3rd. We're technically tied for 4th, technically, you look at it that way. But, so I gave the tiebreak to Oregon, Ohio State and Oregon, conference championship game, and wash, rinse, repeat. Ohio State's going to go 13-0 and beat you. Close game. Closer than probably the first one was. But I'm picking Ohio State to beat Oregon to win the Big Ten championship. So again, in a recap, bottom up. Indiana 1-8, Minnesota, Northwestern, and Purdue 2-7. Illinois and Rutgers 3-6. Maryland, Michigan State, Washington, UCLA, and Wisconsin 4-5 in conference. Iowa, Nebraska 5-4. Penn State, Michigan 7-2. USC, Oregon 8-1. Ohio State 9-0, and champ. 4 teams with double-digit wins on the season: Ohio State, Oregon, USC, and Penn State. Michigan just missing it at 9-3. But that's my predictions. So it's time for you to tell me what you think down in the comments. So thanks everybody for watching. It's part 5. It's done. It's done. Big Ten's done. Next week, oh, my subscribers be waiting on this one. It's the Big 12 next week. I'll begin this. First off, if you haven't done it already, do me the favor, please. Smash the like button, hit the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm, helps the video be seen by more people. Comment on the video. Let me know what you think about my predictions for USC, Washington, and Wisconsin, as well as for the entire conference and the conference championship game. Tell me what you think. Be honest down in the comments. Share this video if you want to, and if you haven't done it already, do me the favor. If you already subscribed to the channel, again, thank you for doing so. Greatly appreciate it. Also, a couple people messaged me on X in between the recording of these 2 videos. that some of them got accidentally unsubscribed somehow. So double check if you think you're subscribed to the channel. Double check to make sure you are, because I lost a couple of people a while back and some came back, and I'm wondering what's going on here. Just double check for me and see if you're still subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, check out some of the other videos I've done. I don't just do scheduled prediction videos. There's a lot of other stuff back there. That's good. If you like it, hey, subscribe to the channel. You know, on the way to 700 subscribers, slowly but surely on the road to 1K to make some things happen. If you want to follow me on X, if you want to know the schedule for the Big 12 videos, I will post that on Twitter, on X, on Sunday, right after or right before I do the college football recap show for all the stuff that's happened during the week. Like people still believing Florida State and Clemson are going to the Big 12 and it's not a leverage play. Like Carmani McLean not able to get out of his own damn way and show up on time. Yeesh. Problems at Fresno State with finding a new head coach. Oh, man. Sorry about that, folks. You look, I'm a little red right now. I'm sweating because it's 100 degrees here. And you can't tell I'm in the shade, but it's hot. And I had to turn the truck off, so I got no AC running. So it is hot in here right now. But for you guys, I'll do it. So then, thanks everybody for watching. Like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on X. Thanks everybody. Remember, this is a Friday video. As I said in the previous video, Operation Southern Slowdown, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. They're checking for speeders primarily on state highway, on actually some cases state highways, mainly U.S. highways and interstates. But they're checking for speeders. Watch your speed this weekend because they will be enforcing even more than 2 over. You go 3 over, they may pull you over. Watch your speed because the number of fatalities in these 5 states significantly went up in the last 5 years, and they want to drop it down. Because most of those deaths happen because of speeding-related accidents. So, be careful with your speed if you're in those states this weekend. Saturday it ends, but still, be safe driving. Everybody's having a great day. Having a great Friday. I get to cool down and eat now. So thanks everybody for watching. Sunday Recap Show, needless to say, will be on Sunday. Thanks everybody for watching. Everybody's having a great day. Enjoy your weekend. See you on Sunday. And please, be good to each other.